Hello, Truth Be Told fans. This is your Truth Be Told Minuteman, Robert Hensley, coming to you live from some undisclosed location somewhere in North America. Thanks again for joining me again today, Monday, for a new episode of the Minuteman Report. Over the weekend, I was with a group of weirdos like myself, and we were actually rewatching a favorite movie. It led to a great discussion, and we went down a rabbit hole for a couple of days, and I wanted to share with you what I found because I thought it was really interesting, and I thought this is Minuteman stuff. So today we're looking into the lineage of Jesus of Nazareth, right? So if you're familiar at all with the work of Dan Brown, right, the guy that wrote the Da Vinci Code and Angels and Demons, you know that there are a lot of religious conspiracy theories out there regarding the life of Jesus, the life of Mary and Joseph, Mary Magdalene, all kinds of stuff. So this is what started it off. We rewatched the Da Vinci Code, and then we got into this conversation of what if Jesus had children, or there was an extended family, a lineage, which of course there is, or there could be. Let's put it that way. There could be. So let's start off because this first part is really, really cool. So in Israel, there was a place, and it was talked about by pilgrims in the 7th century, called the Church of Nutrition, which was said to have been built on top of a cave dwelling, a cave house, which was where Jesus, Joseph, and Mary lived. It's where Jesus grew up, and it was kind of lost over time, and then there were some nuns that came in from France, the Sisters of Nazareth, and they ended up building their convent on the ruins of the Church of Nutrition. And all of this kind of was discovered in the 19th century. Archaeologists, theologians, everybody, they kind of like poo-pooed it until the 1930s. And then people started really looking into what was there. So now these nuns, right, because you gotta love some nuns. The nuns actually almost expertly, archaeologically, dug out the ruins of the church to get to the original dwelling, the house of Jesus. And now Professor Dark and his team from the University of Reading have been there looking at everything that was moved and collected by the nuns, and have really been kind of taking stock of this house. Now, I know you're thinking like a cave dwelling, like an underground house, but Joseph was a carpenter. Well, Joseph was a builder. We say carpenter, which is a loose translation, when really it was builder. And during that time period, a lot of people dug their homes into the stone, right? And this is, from what I've been reading, is an expertly crafted house that was chiseled out of this stone face. Actually, I'll go back to the title card, because if you look, this is actually, and again, I apologize if you're listening on audio, but if you're watching us on YouTube, you can see this. This is actually the structure, the entryway into Jesus's house, or the house where Jesus grew up, right? So it's really cool that they're actually finding. I love when history, or when archaeologists and experts are able to kind of prove history or theories, because it humanizes stories for us, and we start to think about things in a way that are more relatable, right? So again, very cool that they discovered the house. I'm totally down for this. But to further think about what we know or what we've been taught, a lot of people have this idea, and a lot of denominations, honestly, prescribe or subscribe to this idea. Is it prescribe or subscribe? I keep saying that wrong. I think it's subscribe, isn't it? Anyway, if someone knows, put it in the put it in the chat and teach me a lesson, please. But we kind of have this idea that Joseph and Mary were these young teenage newlyweds. That's not really the case, right? So it does say in the New Testament that Joseph had been married before. So it turns out that he had been married to this woman named Salome. They had been married for 48 years, and they had what they call Jesus's brothers and sisters, right? Now they name the brothers in the New Testament: James, Joseph, Judas, and Simon. They mention that there were sisters, but they never give them names, just like men, right? Forget about the women. So at this point, Joseph is a man. He's actually an elderly man. He's 80 years old when a 12 to 14-year-old Mary is betrothed to him, right? Because she's 16 to 18, around there when Jesus is born. So there is more family. So this idea that Mary was a virgin when Jesus was born and then stayed a virgin, she and Joseph may not have had other children, especially given his advanced age. Now, in some schools, right, these brothers and sisters are half siblings, Joseph's children to a previous marriage. And then in some schools of thought, these brothers, quote unquote brothers, are actually first cousins. They are the children of Mary's sister. And so this kind of this close family extension between Jesus and his relatives, his cousins, could also explain this. But now, the thing that was really intriguing is that if you think about this, if Mary's sister, right, had children, Jesus is at least half of Mary's, right, genetically. So there is a lineage. There's a family tree that could be followed down. So Dan Brown is not completely wrong. There could still be close relatives or relations of Jesus on the planet Earth, right? Which I think is very cool. So the other thing that, of course, because when you're on the internet and you go down a rabbit hole, you find lots of pictures. And this was the only painting, the only image that I could find that really kind of showed Mary looking like a teenager, looking like a very young woman. In my head, I thought, traditionally she would be young. I didn't realize that 12 to 14 was the age of betrothal at that point in history, but I get it. So I thought this was kind of the visage. And again, if you're on YouTube, you're seeing this audio. I'm sorry, you'll have to look it up. And this particular painting is actually called the Virgin of Sorrows. But then it led us onto this question of what did Jesus really look like? We all grew up, or at least most of us probably grew up, especially here in the United States, seeing that kind of long-haired, bearded white guy with blue eyes and light brown hair. But given the location of where he grew up, Nazareth, and Israel, chances are he had very Middle Eastern looks. Now, I know that for a lot of white folk out there, this kind of Kenny Loggins looking dude with a tan up here is probably, or might be, a little more comfortable to think of as being your Lord and Savior. But genetic research and genetic history kind of tells us that he probably looked like this guy here. Dark olive skin, broader nose, wide eyes, thick brow, bearded, curly hair texture in the hair. So yeah, I just thought, I'm just throwing that in there because I thought that was interesting. When you think about what did what did this person from history really look like? So, but things don't end there, right? Okay, so Dan Brown, turns out Dan Brown is inspired by some other information, right, that is contained in some scrolls, and particularly a text known as the Gospel of Mary, and it's the Gospel of Mary Magdalene, the wife of Jesus. So there's a book, right? I'm going to pop it up here on the screen, called The Lost Gospel, and these researchers have basically taken this document, which is in an Aramaic dialect, and they've translated it into English. And this gospel talks about the fact that Mary Magdalene, married to Jesus, actually bore him 2 sons. Now, if that's the case, that means that Jesus doesn't just have kind of like familial relationships through his cousins, but there are direct descendants. And now this is where Dan Brown comes in with the Da Vinci Code and leading us to that last known relative of Jesus Christ. But it's a really interesting book. I've ordered it because I want to know more. But it's worth looking into. But if you have a look at the different scrolls that mention Mary Magdalene, she was really kind of given great importance. She was given authority over the disciples. She was, she took part in the first churches. She was kind of a powerful lady, and really kind of continued that, the teachings of Jesus. Anyway, I'm sure Mary Magdalene did not look like this lovely lady on my screen, but it was a really beautiful painting, so I decided to include it. I know that she doesn't look like this, but I liked it. And because it's my Minuteman report, that's what I wanted to show. So now, just so you know, because I also had this kind of thought of, what happened to everybody, right? So I'm assuming that Joseph, being 80 years old, I have no idea how long he lives, and I can't find anything about where and when he passed. But Hippolytus of Thebes, he reported in his writings that Mary, Jesus' mother, lived for another 11 years after Jesus' ascension, and then she ascended in 41 AD. Now, they believe that she went with the disciple John, that Jesus had kind of asked Mary to go with John, his trusted disciple, and she lived out the rest of her days in a house in Turkey, and there is now a cathedral built on the site where Mary's house stood, or where they believe that Mary's house stood. So this whole idea of the Da Vinci Code about there being a lineage of Christ, or a lineage of Jesus of Nazareth, not super far-fetched. While no one can really prove that he had 2 sons, it does make sense that there are relations, that there is a genetic link to some people that is carried down, and that there are possibly still people walking on the face of the planet who are descendants of Jesus of Nazareth. I think that's pretty cool, don't you? Thanks for listening. This has been another live weekly episode of the Minuteman Report. I'm your Minuteman, Robert Hensley. Thanks again for listening, and be sure to tune in next week. And remember that there is always new Truth Be Told content every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 Eastern. Sorry, not Central, Eastern. Again, me on Mondays, Bonnie on Wednesdays with Truth Be Told Transformation, and of course, Tony Sweet with the original Truth Be Told on Fridays. And if you'd like to know more, visit us on the web at www.truthbetoldworldwide.com, and you can also shop there for some really cool merchandise. And if you like this content, be sure to like it, share it with your friends. Even better, if you don't like it, share it with your enemies, right? And be sure to subscribe so you always know when we've got new content coming out. All right, guys, have a good one. I'll see you on the next go round.